Another flash lit up the eastern Pacific on Friday, and another boat vanished beneath the waves. The U.S. military confirmed it carried out a lethal strike on a vessel accused of drug trafficking, killing 2 people and leaving 1 survivor. U.S. Southern Command said the attack was ordered by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and executed under Operation Southern Spear, a campaign the Trump administration says is aimed at cutting off narcotics routes into the United States. A video released by Southcom shows the boat speeding across open water, then erupting into flames. The Coast Guard was notified moments later and dispatched search and rescue teams for the lone survivor. It marked the first known strike on a suspected drug boat since the dramatic U.S. raid that captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro earlier this month and flew him to New York to face federal drug trafficking charges. Maduro has pleaded not guilty. With this latest attack, the numbers are stark. 36 known strikes since early September, at least 117 people killed. Most of the attacks have occurred in the Caribbean, though the Eastern Pacific has now re-emerged as a focal point. Publicly, U.S. officials insist the mission is about stopping drugs. President Donald Trump has claimed the strikes have virtually stopped almost 100% of maritime drug trafficking, boasting about their impact during remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Privately, however, officials previously acknowledged the pressure campaign was also meant to destabilize Maduro's government, a claim Maduro himself made repeatedly before his capture, calling the operations a thinly veiled attempt to remove him from power. The strikes have not been without controversy. Several previous attacks left survivors. In December, people were seen abandoning boats before the Coast Guard later suspended its search. In October, 2 survivors from a strike on a semi-submersible vessel were rescued and eventually returned to Ecuador and Colombia. Most troubling was the operation's first strike in September, when an initial hit failed to sink a boat and a second strike was carried out as survivors clung to the wreckage. That double-tap attack sparked outrage on Capitol Hill, with Democratic lawmakers demanding transparency and warning the U.S. military may have crossed into war crime territory. Now, with Maduro in U.S. custody and strikes resuming after a brief pause, the message is unmistakable. This campaign is not slowing down, and as the boats burn and bodies mount, the line between counter-narcotics enforcement and open military escalation continues to blur, deepening a shadow war across the Caribbean and beyond.
The intention is that the entirety of our educational structure should not be solely dependent upon the location of this specific military installation. On this very same spot, this exact space where we are currently standing at this precise moment in time, a military aggression was committed, perpetrated by the world's foremost, most powerful, and lethally armed nuclear superpower. It was stated by President Donald Trump himself just yesterday, speaking from Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum. That occurs on an annual basis over there in Davos. He said it in a very explicit and clear way that he had utilized weaponry that had never before been deployed or even witnessed on any battlefield, weapons that no other nation or power in the entire world possessed.
And those weapons, that technology, they are a real issue.
That they used against our community members on the 3rd of January 2026,
Venezuela has turned out to be the laboratory.
Where that aggression, well, it ended in what we already know. The kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro Moros, the president these people elected, and his wife, the First Lady, Dr. Congresswoman Celia Flores. Versus the concept of sovereignism, versus the idea of independence, and versus the very nature of character itself. I am mentioning all of these things because from these very same environments where they received the systematic bombardment fully assisted by artificial intelligence technology executed at the most sophisticated and highest possible level.
That was previously tested.
Within these very same spaces, we are holding a ceremony at its very heart. This is the very wellspring from which the powerful, combative, and deeply rooted national spirit of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces continuously emanates. I am speaking now with great respect of those foundational institutions that serve as their cherished alma maters, namely their distinguished military academies.
I am talking about the Bolivarian Military University of Venezuela. The pro-sovereignty principles, the pro-independence ones.
They are standing there completely and totally intact. Our Commander-in-Chief, President Nicolás Maduro,
Today I am a prisoner of war.
from this very location, from the deepest core of our academic institution, we are compelled to reiterate our absolute demand, speaking directly from the heart of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, that they must bring him back immediately to this place, to his rightful and sovereign homeland.
A decent, honest man, completely free of all those malicious and unfounded accusations that are currently being leveled against him.
We already know a great deal about that. We are very familiar with the human qualities, the political leadership, and the role as Commander-in-Chief of President Nicolás Maduro Moros.
The Bolivarian Military University must focus on the development of socially conscious and truly humane individuals.
Claims that the United States deployed an unknown and highly advanced weapon during its operation to capture Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro have sparked intense global attention following a dramatic eyewitness account shared online by the White House press secretary. The account, reported by the New York Post, recounts how Venezuelan security forces were allegedly incapacitated within minutes by a technology described as unlike anything previously encountered in combat. According to the guard quoted in the Post, Venezuelan troops were on routine alert when their defensive systems abruptly failed. He said radar screens went dark without warning, leaving forces blind and disoriented. Almost immediately, swarms of drones appeared overhead, followed by a small number of U.S. helicopters. The guard estimated that fewer than 10 helicopters deployed roughly 20 American troops, a force he described as vastly outnumbered by Venezuelan defenders. Despite the numerical imbalance, the witness said the U.S. unit overwhelmed hundreds of fighters with extraordinary speed and precision. He claimed American soldiers moved with a level of coordination and firepower that made resistance impossible, describing the encounter not as a battle, but as a one-sided assault. "We were hundreds, but we had no chance," he said, adding that the rate and accuracy of fire felt overwhelming. The most disturbing moment, however, came when the guard described the deployment of a mysterious device. He said the Americans released something that produced an intense, crushing force, which he could only compare to a powerful sound wave. The sensation, he claimed, felt as if his head was exploding from within. Within seconds, soldiers around him reportedly began bleeding from their noses, vomiting blood, and collapsing to the ground, unable to move or stand. The White House has not confirmed whether the reposting of the account by Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, accompanied by the caption, "Stop what you are doing and read this," constitutes official verification of the claims. Venezuela's Interior Ministry has stated that approximately 100 members of its security forces were killed during the January 3rd operation. It remains unclear how many of those deaths, if any, may be linked to the alleged weapon described in the account. A former U.S. intelligence source, cited in the reporting, suggested that the symptoms described resemble the effects of directed energy weapons, a category of military technology that uses focused energy, such as microwaves or lasers, to disable targets. The source said the U.S. military has possessed versions of such systems for decades and acknowledged that some are capable of causing bleeding, pain, disorientation, and temporary loss of bodily function. However, the source stopped short of confirming whether such a weapon was used in Venezuela. The Venezuelan Guard said the raid has sent a chilling message across the region. He warned that the operation demonstrated capabilities far beyond conventional warfare and claimed it has already triggered widespread fear throughout Latin America, especially after President Donald Trump recently warned that Mexico was on the list. "I'm sending a warning to anyone who thinks they can fight the United States," he said. "After what I saw, I never want to be on the other side of that again."